He humiliated his pregnant wife in front of everyone, and the Duke beside him destroyed his empire. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The chandeliers blazed above the great hall, casting their light over silk, lace and powdered hair, but Isabel Herrera felt the shine fall on her like a weight. The music, the murmur of voices, the faint scent of perfume and melted wax, all came together in a blur as she clung to her husband's arm and tried to keep her balance. "Smile," Don Martin murmured without looking at her. "You are entering the room of your life. Try not to look as if you are about to faint." "I am well," she answered softly. "It is only the heat, Martin, and the child." "The child," he repeated, as if the word displeased him. "Yes. Remember at least that you carry my heir, and walk as though you are proud of it." She did not remind him that pride was difficult when her stays cut into her ribs and her ankles ached. She adjusted her grip on his arm and raised her chin. Dozens of faces turned toward them. Some smiled with practiced warmth. Others watched with curiosity. They were the great names of Madrid, the ancient families whose lineages reached back centuries, now opening their gilded doors to a merchant from Seville who had turned trade into power. Don Martin Herrera, announced a servant at the top of the staircase, and his wife, Doña Isabel. The title still sounded strange in Isabel's ears. She had been simply Isabel de Rojas not long ago, daughter of a modest but respectable house. Now her name followed Martin's, measured by his success. A ripple ran through the hall. Gentlemen bowed. Ladies inclined their heads, fans fluttering like pale wings. Martin received their attention as though it were his due. His back straightened. His chest swelled a little. He accepted compliments with a light laugh. "So generous of your grace to honor us," he said to one nobleman. "Ah, my lord, your last letter was most flattering. I hope tonight will prove I deserved such praise." Isabel stood beside him, smiling when he nudged her with his elbow. "This is my wife," he would say. "She is unused to such grand company, but she learns quickly." She would curtsy, murmur a polite phrase, then retreat behind his presence, like a figure painted beside a central portrait. Some ladies asked after her condition, their gaze slipping down to her rounded belly. "When is the child expected, Doña Isabel?" one of them asked kindly. "In a few months, Señora," she replied. "The physician believes in late spring. May God bless the birth," the lady answered. "First children are always a little frightening." Isabel smiled, genuinely then. "Yes, but also a little comforting. They give us someone to protect." She felt Martin's hand tighten slightly over hers. When they moved on, he bent his head toward her. "Do not speak of fear," he murmured. "You make yourself sound timid in front of people who expect composure." "I thought I answered well," she said. "You thought?" he echoed. "That is the problem. Leave the impression to me, Isabel. It is what I do best." At the far end of the hall, Alejandro de Navarra watched them. He stood with a small group of gentlemen, listening to a conversation about court news, but his eyes followed the merchant and his young wife as they crossed the polished floor. "That is Herrera," one of the men beside him said quietly. "He has risen like a comet, ships everywhere. Tobacco, sugar, silver. They say he has more influence in certain matters than many of us born to these walls." Alejandro's gaze rested on Martin's face, taking in the measured smile, the almost hungry way he searched the room for the next important person. "And his wife?" Alejandro asked. "A girl from a lesser house," the man replied. "Pretty, I suppose. Not much to say about her. She looks as if she'd rather be hiding in a chapel." Alejandro said nothing. His attention moved from the husband to the wife. Isabel's posture was careful, almost too careful, as if every step required conscious effort. He saw the way she kept one hand close to her side, not quite touching her abdomen, as though she wanted to protect the child without drawing attention to it. "She walks as if the floor were water," another gentleman remarked. "Poor thing. These festivities must be exhausting in her state. Yet proof of Herrera's vigor," the first man chuckled. "He parades her like a banner." Alejandro's mouth tightened. He drained his glass and set it down. "I imagine the child is proof of God's will rather than anyone's vigor," he said calmly. The others laughed uneasily, not sure whether he intended a jest. Alejandro inclined his head, signaling an end to the topic, and turned his attention back to the room. The host of the evening approached Martin with outstretched arms. The man was an aging noble, his coat heavy with embroidery, his face lined but alert. "Don Martin," he said warmly, "you do my house honor tonight. Your presence brings half the city's energy under my roof. Your Excellency is too kind," Martin answered, bowing. "I only follow where men of vision such as yourself lead." "Look around," the host said, sweeping his hand across the hall. "You stand among dukes and marquises tonight, my friend. It is no small thing. You have earned it." Earned. The word pleased Martin. He glanced around, soaking in each glance turned his way. Isabel beside him felt his satisfaction like heat on her skin. "Your Excellency," she said softly, "thank you for receiving us with such kindness." The noble smiled at her. "Your presence, my dear, completes your husband's triumph. A man is never so fully presented to society as when he arrives with a wife and a child on the way." He said it kindly, but the words stung. Isabel felt more like a seal pressed into wax than a person. She dipped her head and smiled. "Shall we greet the Duke of Navarra?" the host went on. "He is here this evening as well." Alejandro approached as they turned. He walked with the relaxed ease of someone who had never needed to prove his place in a room. His dark hair was tied back neatly, his coat simple but impeccably cut. When he bowed, it was with a natural grace that made no show of itself. "Your Grace," Martin said with careful warmth. "An honor. I had not expected you." "Your host insisted," Alejandro replied. "He spoke of a night that would mark the city's memory, and I confess my curiosity has always been strong." Martin smiled a little too broadly. "You flatter me beyond measure." Alejandro's gaze shifted to Isabel. "Doña Isabel," he said gently, "I hope the evening is not too taxing." Her heart startled at being addressed by a duke so directly. She took a breath. "The evening is beautiful, Your Grace," she answered. "I confess only that the child grows heavy. Children are notorious for ignoring social schedules," he said. "They arrive and demand our attention without regard for our plans." There was a faint gleam of humor in his eyes, and for a heartbeat, Isabel relaxed. "Indeed," she said. "Mine seems to believe I must never sit." Martin chuckled, but there was a warning under the sound. "My wife is unused to grand gatherings," he said. "She sometimes forgets that weariness is a small price to pay for such an honor." Alejandro's expression did not change. "Weariness is always a price, Don Martin," he answered. "It is wise to know whom we pay it to." The words hung in the air a moment. Martin's smile stiffened. The host hurried to speak of other matters. Isabel lowered her eyes, wondering if she had somehow given the wrong answer. Yet when she dared a brief glance at the Duke, he was looking at her with a kind of distant concern, as if he saw more than she had said. The musicians began a new piece. Couples moved toward the center of the floor. "You must lead your wife in a dance, Herrera," one gentleman called. "Tonight is your celebration. Do not deprive us of the spectacle." Isabel felt her stomach tighten. "It might be a little difficult," she began. "Nonsense," Martin interrupted. "You can manage a short dance. You will not disgrace me with weakness in front of these men." Her cheeks warmed. "It is not weakness," she said quietly. "The physician advised—" "I advised you to support me tonight," he murmured, smile fixed. "That will be enough." He took her hand and drew her toward the center. Isabel's steps were careful. The gown pressed against her stomach. Her breath came shallow. Around them, couples were already moving, skirts swirling, gentlemen guiding with easy grace. "Lift your head," Martin said through his teeth. "You are not a servant being paraded. You are my wife. Look the part." She obeyed. The music rose and they began to move. Martin's hand at her waist was firm, almost bruising. Isabel tried to follow his steps, but the floor seemed to shift under her. The light felt too bright. Heat crept up her neck. "Do not drag your feet," he said. "I am trying." "Trying is for those who can afford to fail. I cannot." He tightened his grip and turned her sharply. Her balance faltered. For a moment, the world tilted. She fought to correct herself, but the pressure on her ribs, the weight of the child, the spinning figures around her, all came together at once. Her foot caught the edge of her skirt. She stumbled. Gasps fluttered around them like startled birds. A violin gave a discordant note. Isabel's hand flew to her abdomen as she struggled not to fall. She caught herself at the last instant. but the movement threw her posture out of rhythm. She stood off balance in the middle of the floor, her heart pounding. Martin stopped. His face reddened, not with concern, but with fury. For a moment, he simply stared at her, as if he could not believe what had happened. Then he stepped back, freeing his hand from her grasp as if she burned him. "Enough," he said. His voice carried over the music, loud and clear. "You are determined to ruin this evening." The musicians faltered. The hall hushed. Isabel felt dozens of eyes on her. She heard a lady whisper, "Oh, the poor thing," and another murmur, "How clumsy. I lost my footing," Isabel said softly. "I am sorry." The floor, Martin repeated. "The floor is not at fault. You simply do not know how to walk among people who expect more than hesitation and excuses." His words rang out. Alejandro, standing near one of the columns, straightened. He could not pretend not to hear. Isabel's throat tightened. "Martin, Do not speak," he said. "You have said too much already with your performance. You think yourself delicate, yet you are merely unprepared. I warned you that tonight was important. I should have listened to myself and left you at home." His voice remained calm, almost polite, but the contempt in his tone cut deeper than a shout. A murmur buzzed around them. Some of the guests looked away, embarrassed. Others watched with sharp interest, hungry for scandal. "Don Martin," the host murmured, stepping forward. "It is nothing. A small misstep. The lady is with child. We must expect—" "What I expect," Martin interrupted, "is that my wife be capable of taking 3 simple steps without turning the eyes of half Madrid upon herself." He turned back to Isabel. She stood frozen, one hand hovering near her belly, the other hanging uselessly at her side. "You will retire," he said. "Clearly you cannot manage to behave properly in such company." The host looked distressed. "Perhaps a chair, a little water." "No," Martin replied. "She will return home. She is unready for a world that demands composure. I cannot allow her to drag me down with her." Alejandro moved at last. He stepped forward, his expression composed, but his eyes hard. "Don Martin," he said quietly, "forgive me, but the lady appears unwell. It would be wise to ensure she is not in distress before making any decision." Martin turned to him with a thin smile. "I thank your grace for your concern," he answered. "However, I know my wife. She has always had a talent for appearing fragile at the most inconvenient moments." Isabel flinched. The words felt like a slap. "My husband exaggerates," she said in a low voice. "I'm only a little dizzy. The child again," Martin said. "One would think no other woman in Spain has ever carried one. We will not continue this spectacle. You will leave." Alejandro looked at Isabel, his gaze steady and kind. "Doña Isabel," he said, "if you wish, I can call for a chair and some fresh air on the balcony. No one will think less of you for resting." She opened her mouth, but Martin spoke first. "That will not be necessary," he said sharply. "She has taken enough attention tonight. I think it best that she withdraw entirely. I will have a carriage brought around." "Don Martin," Alejandro replied, "forgive me, but perhaps the lady should decide whether she can remain a little longer." Isabel's heart thudded. For the first time that night, someone had spoken of her will as if it mattered. The idea startled her. Martin's jaw clenched. "She will decide nothing," he said. "She is my wife. Her presence here reflects on me, not on herself. I will not risk further embarrassment." He turned to Isabel. "Go," he said quietly, but no less cruelly. "You are unworthy tonight of walking at my side." The room seemed to contract around her. Isabel felt her vision blur. Unworthy. The word struck deeper than any mention of clumsiness. It did not accuse her of a misstep. It accused her very being. She swallowed, forcing her voice to remain steady. "May I at least thank our host before I leave?" "You have thanked him enough with your display," Martin answered. "You will go now. I will make your excuses." There was nothing more she could say. To argue would only deepen the scene. She gathered what remained of her composure, placed one hand gently over her belly, and turned to the host. "Please forgive me," she said softly. "I fear I am not as strong as I wish to be this evening. Thank you for your kindness." The man looked at her with genuine sympathy. "My dear, you owe me no apology. The fault is not yours." Martin's eyes flashed, but he said nothing. He gestured to a servant. "Escort my wife to the carriage," he ordered. "Ensure she reaches home safely." Alejandro stepped aside as Isabel passed him. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. In hers, he saw shame, but also something else beneath it, a quiet determination not to break in front of all these faces. In his, she saw anger that did not belong to gossip, but to something deeper, an indignation at injustice. "May your journey be easy, Doña Isabel," he said softly. "Take care of yourself and the child." "Thank you, Your Grace," she replied, her voice almost a whisper. She walked out, each step measured, as if she carried not only her child, but the weight of every stair in the hall. The doors closed behind her. The music resumed after a moment, but low and hesitant, as though the violins themselves were ashamed. The conversations gradually returned, though nothing was as carefree as before. Near the refreshment table, a group of ladies exchanged hushed comments. "How harsh," one murmured. "She nearly fainted." "He should have been more considerate," another agreed. "She is with child." "Men of trade," a third said. "They think they can command everything, even a woman's strength." Alejandro listened without approaching. Across the room, Martín had already rearranged his expression into a courteous mask. He laughed a little too loudly at a joke, accepted a glass of wine, and made a remark about the burdens of marriage that drew a scattered, uneasy chuckle. Alejandro turned away. He felt an unfamiliar pressure in his chest, a mix of anger and something like sorrow. He had seen unkindness before. Aristocratic houses were not free of cruelty, yet there was something particularly offensive in the way Martín had humiliated his wife while she carried his child, treating her as a failure rather than a person in need. A servant approached him quietly. "Your Grace," the man said, "may I bring you more wine?" "No," Alejandro replied, "but you may bring my cloak. I will not stay long." The servant bowed and moved away. The host noticed Alejandro's movement and came toward him with a concerned look. "You are leaving so soon, Your Grace?" he asked. "I regret that I must," Alejandro answered. "There are matters that require my attention sooner than I expected." The host sighed. "I fear this evening has taken an unfortunate turn." Alejandro glanced toward Martín. "Sometimes it is not the evening that turns," he said. "It is the true nature of men that steps into the light." The host frowned slightly. "Herrera is valuable to many here. His enterprises carry half our hopes for prosperity." "Prosperity built on what?" Alejandro asked calmly. "I have heard questions whispered about his dealings. Tonight I have seen the way he treats the person closest to him. I begin to suspect that what lies beneath his velvet is not as sound as many would wish." The host hesitated. "You know something?" "I know enough to wonder," the Duke replied, "and wondering in my position leads to inquiries." The host paled a little. "If his affairs are irregular, it will shake more than his house." Alejandro's gaze hardened. "Better a few houses shaken than a kingdom sustained by deceit." The servant returned with his cloak. Alejandro put it on, fastening the clasp with steady fingers. He looked once more across the hall. Martín stood in a circle of men, gesturing as he spoke, his laughter echoing falsely. A quiet anger settled in Alejandro's mind, not rash, but cold and resolute. He stepped out into the cold Madrid night, already sending his steward in search of the documents that could shatter Don Martín Herrera's glittering empire. The carriage wheels had hardly cooled when Martín stalked through the front door. The lamps in the Herrera house burned low, casting long shadows on the walls. Isabel stepped into the hall as he entered, one hand smoothing her gown, the other resting lightly near her belly. "You are home early," she said softly. "I asked the servants to keep the supper warm for you." He handed his cloak to a footman without looking at her. "Supper is of no concern," he said. "What concerns me is the memory I left behind at that palace." She felt the sting immediately. "I am sorry for what happened." "Are you?" He turned then, eyes sharp. "Because you did not look sorry when you stumbled like a frightened child in front of half the noble houses of Madrid." "I nearly lost my balance," she answered. "The room was hot. The stays are tight. The child presses. Everyone has a reason," he cut in. "Only some know how to keep it from showing. You were given one task tonight, Isabel. One. To walk at my side with sufficient grace that no one questioned my judgment in marrying below the highest circles. You could not manage even that." Her cheeks burned. "I did my best." He laughed once without humor. Your best nearly had me dragging you off the floor like a fainting actress. Do you know what people saw tonight? Do you know what they whispered?" She swallowed. "They saw that I was unwell." They saw a man whose wife was not prepared for the company he keeps, he replied. They saw a merchant from Seville trying to shine among dukes, and a wife who proved he still belongs among the clumsy. Do not be naive. Isabel gripped the back of a chair to steady herself. I did not wish to harm you, she said. I was proud to stand beside you. Pride without skill is useless, he said. You will not attend such gatherings again until I say you are ready. Do you understand? The words struck like a door closing. Not attend, she repeated. But the child, he will be born soon. People expect me to know how to present my household, he said. If that means keeping you out of sight for a time, I will do so. It is my name they speak of in those halls, not yours. She bit her lip. I am your wife. Precisely, he said. And a wife is meant to support, not to stumble. We will speak no more of this tonight. You may go to your room. I have letters to write. She hesitated. Would you like me to? I said, go, he repeated, his voice cool, not loud, but firm enough to leave no room for argument. She bowed her head. Good night, Martine, she whispered and turned away. In her chamber, she sat on the edge of the bed, hands resting over her stomach. The child moved beneath her fingers, a gentle flutter that brought tears to her eyes. I am sorry, she murmured. I did not mean to make you part of a scene. She wiped her face quickly when her maid entered to help her undress. The girl said nothing of the evening. Servants knew when silence was safer. Days passed. The memory of the ball spread through Madrid like smoke. At first, only a few hints reached the Herrera house. A lady's note, slightly too sympathetic. A remark from a tradesman, delivered with a nervous smile. Martine read everything, heard everything, and grew more watchful. At home, his displeasure became a steady chill rather than a storm. He did not shout, he did not strike, he did not need to. He found fault in small things, and wielded them like instruments. You placed these flowers too close to the sunlight, he said one morning. They will wilt before dinner. I thought the window would give them more life, Isabel replied. You thought wrong, he said. Ask the housekeeper next time. Do not make decisions about what others must look at. Another day she brought a book to the breakfast table, thinking to read a few pages while he read correspondence. Must you always have your nose in some tale? He asked. You would better spend your time learning which families sit near which at table. That is the knowledge that will serve you. Books help me understand people too, she said quietly. Books give you ideas, he said. Ideas are dangerous in someone who does not bear responsibility. She closed the book and set it aside. When visitors came, he called for her only briefly. Isabel, he would say, come greet the Marquis. Do not say much. A smile will suffice. She would enter, offer a polite welcome, and stand near him like a painted image while the men spoke of shipments, prices, and favor at court. If she ventured a comment, he corrected her at once. That is not how it is, my dear, he would say, laughing. My wife does not understand the intricacies yet. She speaks from a gentle heart, not from knowledge of commerce. The guests would smile and nod. Isabel would feel herself shrink behind the soft words. One afternoon her cousin Beatrice arrived, bringing a basket of small sweet cakes. You look tired, Beatrice said as they sat together, and thinner, except for the child. Tiredness comes with the season, Isabel replied, and with the nights. Does he still speak of the ball? Beatrice asked carefully. Not in words, Isabel said, but it hangs in the air when he looks at me. You did nothing wrong, Beatrice said firmly. You are carrying his child, not performing on a stage. He should have been proud that you were there at all. Pride is different for him, Isabel said. He has worked very hard to be where he is. He fears anything that might push him back to where he began. Beatrice took her hand. That is no excuse to lay his fears upon you. You are not a step to be climbed. Footsteps sounded in the corridor. Beatrice let go of her hand quickly. Martine appeared in the doorway, already smiling as if he had heard nothing. Beatrice, he said, what a pleasant surprise. I came to see how Isabel fares, Beatrice replied. And to bring cakes, Isabel added, trying to keep her tone light. How thoughtful, Martine said. Though I hope you did not tire yourself unduly on your way here. The streets are not always safe for a lady. Beatrice smiled politely. I brought my maid and a footman. We were quite well. Good, he said. Well, you will forgive me if I steal my wife for a moment. I must speak with her about this evening." He offered a brief bow and gestured for Isabel to follow him. In his study, he closed the door. "We will receive important guests today," he said. "Men whose support will decide certain ventures, Alejandro de Navarra among them." Isabel stilled. "The Duke of Navarra is coming here." "Yes," Martin said. "Our host at the ball has arranged it. It seems the Duke wishes to discuss some matters of trade and charity. You will behave appropriately." "I always try to behave appropriately," she said. "You will do more than try," he said. "You will succeed. You will greet them with courtesy, then you will listen. You will not offer opinions on ships or taxes or the plight of anyone. If spoken to, you will answer briefly. If you are unsure, you will say nothing. Is that clear?" "Yes," she said, pressing her lips together. "You will look well," he added. "Wear the blue gown. It makes you seem less pale." "Beatrice brought cakes," Isabel said quietly. "Might we offer them with the chocolate?" He considered, then nodded. "Yes, they will make a pleasant impression. You see, you are useful when you think about such details." He turned back to his desk, already dismissing her. The house stirred into preparation. Silver was polished, carpets brushed, porcelain cups arranged. By late afternoon, the great front door opened to admit noble visitors. "Don Martin," one of them said, clasping his hand, "your house is charming." "I am honored," Martin replied. "You flatter a simple merchant's dwelling." "You will not be simple for long if half what I hear is true," another gentleman remarked. Isabel entered at the right moment, as Martin had instructed. She wore the blue gown as ordered, and had pinned her hair with care. Her steps were steady. "Gentlemen," Martin said, "allow me to present my wife, Doña Isabel." She curtsied gracefully. The men murmured polite greetings. One of them, older, placed a gentle hand over his heart. "Doña Isabel," he said, "you honor our friend. We have already heard of your condition. May the child come healthy and strong." "Thank you, Signor," she replied. "That is my daily prayer." "And mine," the man said kindly. Behind them, a servant announced, "His Grace, Alejandro de Navarra." The room shifted. Alejandro entered, his manner as calm as at the ball, yet the atmosphere around him sharpened. He greeted each man with cordial restraint, then turned to Martin. "Thank you for receiving me," he said. "The honor is mine, Your Grace," Martin replied. "May I present again my wife, Doña Isabel, under more tranquil circumstances." Alejandro looked at her, and for a moment their eyes met. She saw no trace of mockery in his gaze, only a quiet recognition. "Doña Isabel," he said, "I hope you have rested since the other evening." "Yes, Your Grace," she answered. "The rest has done me good." "I am glad," he said. "Please be seated," Martin said quickly. "We have chocolate and some small cakes prepared. My wife has seen that everything is in order." Servants moved efficiently, pouring the thick drink into fine cups, passing trays of cakes. Isabel moved among the guests, offering a cloth here, a plate there. Her movements were careful, but she did not tremble. "So, Don Martin," one of the nobles began, "we have heard much of your enterprises. The ports speak your name with admiration." "Ports do not speak," Alejandro said mildly. "Men do, and their words have many shades." The noble laughed. "True enough, Your Grace, but the shade of Herrera's reputation so far is light." Martin smiled, though the Duke's remark seemed to prick him. "I have been fortunate," Martin said. "And diligent. Fortune tends to favor diligence," Alejandro agreed. "Yet she can be capricious when she finds falsehood at her side." Isabel, passing near them with a tray, heard the words. She kept her eyes on the cups, but her heart beat faster. "Your Grace questions my methods?" Martin asked, still smiling. "I question everything that touches the Crown's interests," Alejandro replied calmly. "It is my duty." "You will find nothing but loyalty in my accounts," Martin said. "I am as committed to Spain's prosperity as any man in this room." "I hope so," the Duke replied. Another noble sought to ease the tension. "Come, gentlemen," he said. "Let us not turn a friendly visit into an examination. We are here to discuss opportunities, not accusations." "Of course," Alejandro said. "I merely speak in general terms." The conversation turned to new routes, possible investments, the need for charitable works to temper profit with generosity. Several times, a question or phrase touched matters Isabel understood only through fragments of letters she had seen in her husband's study. She longed to ask for clarity, to express concern for those who labored at the docks or in the countryside, but she remembered his warning. At one point, as she set a plate near the Marquis de Villaseca, she saw he had no cake. "Would you like one, senor?" she asked. "My cousin made them this morning. They are quite good." The Marquis smiled. "If they are blessed with such endorsement, how can I refuse?" He took one, and she smiled. It was a small, harmless exchange, yet Martin spoke at once. "Isabel," he said lightly but with an edge, "do not tempt the Marquis with sweets. He has a delicate constitution. We would not wish to be responsible for his indisposition." Laughter rippled through the room. The Marquis protested pleasantly that he was in fine health, but Isabel felt the rebuke under the jokes. "I only wish to be hospitable," she said. "And you are," Martin replied. "But let us not have you directing our guests' diets as well as their investments, my dear." A few men smiled. Isabel lowered her gaze. Later, when the plates had been cleared and the servants withdrawn, the men settled into more serious talk. Martin nodded to Isabel. "You may go now," he said. "We will not require you further." She hesitated. "If you need more chocolate, we will call," he said. "Go rest. It is not necessary for you to listen to matters you cannot influence." She curtsied and left the room. Her steps were steady until she reached the hallway. There she paused, drawing a slow breath. Voices drifted from the salon, muffled by walls. She did not return to her chamber at once. Instead, she walked toward the small sitting room that overlooked the garden. On the way, she nearly collided with Alejandro. He stood alone in the corridor, having stepped out, perhaps to stretch his legs. For a moment they both stopped. "Forgive me, Your Grace," she said quickly. "I did not see you." "There is nothing to forgive," he replied. "I should apologize for blocking your path." His tone was gentle. She relaxed a little. "Are you unwell?" he asked. "You left rather quickly." "My husband dismissed me," she said, then flushed. "I mean, he said my presence was no longer needed." Alejandro frowned slightly. "Forgive me, I do not mean to pry. I only recall the other night and wished to be sure you were not faint." "I am not faint," she said. "Only tired of being reminded of my place." He nodded slowly. "And what place do you wish for, Doña Isabel?" She looked at him, startled. No one had ever asked her that. "I do not desire anything extravagant," she said, "only to be allowed to stand beside my husband without fear of bringing him shame, to speak without every word weighed, to be more than an object he brings to a room when it suits him." Alejandro's jaw tightened. "No one should be treated as an object. He believes he must control everything to avoid losing what he has gained," she said. "Perhaps he is not entirely wrong. The world is not kind to those who fall. The world is less kind to those trampled beneath the feet of men who fear falling," Alejandro said quietly. She looked down. "I am his wife. A wife must endure. A wife must not be humiliated," he replied. "Endurance is a virtue when it guards love, not when it hides injustice." She swallowed. "I cannot judge him. I do not see what you see. I am only inside the house. Those inside a house often see most clearly," he said. "Others see the facade." They stood in silence for a moment. A distant clock chimed. "I should return to my guests," he said softly. "And I to my room," she answered. "Doña Isabel," he added, "if ever you feel entirely alone in what you endure, remember that not all eyes in this city are blind." She met his gaze, surprised by the simple declaration. "I thank you, Your Grace," she said, "though I know not what such remembrance can change." "Sometimes," he said, "the knowledge that one is seen is the beginning of change." He bowed, then walked back toward the salon. She watched him go, then turned to her small sitting room, where she sat and tried to calm her racing thoughts. The meeting in the salon lasted another hour. When the guests departed, Alejandro took his leave with polite words. Later that night, he sat at a table in his own residence, a lamp burning low beside him. Before him lay several documents delivered that day by his steward. "The letters from Cadiz, Your Grace," the steward said, "and the report you requested from the port official." "Thank you, Ricardo," Alejandro replied. "You may go. I will call if I need anything further." The man bowed and departed. Alejandro opened the first letter. It spoke of shipments, dates, amounts owed and paid. Nothing unusual on its surface. He set it aside and opened the report. There, certain numbers caught his eye. "Declared tonnage," he murmured, tracing the line with his finger. "And actual tonnage." He reached for another letter. this one from a contact in Seville. The writer hinted at discrepancies between what left the Spanish ports and what arrived in foreign harbors. Names appeared, agents, intermediaries, and among them more than once the name of Martin Herrera. He leaned back, thinking. Patterns formed in his mind. Underdeclared cargo, bribes disguised as fees, profits taken from taxes that should have gone to the crown. A soft knock sounded. Fray Tomás entered, his brown habit plain, his face calm. "You sent for me, my son?" the priest asked. "Yes, father," Alejandro said. "Thank you for coming at this hour." "I am at your service," the priest replied. "What troubles you?" Alejandro gestured to the documents. "Do you know this name?" he asked. "Herrera, a merchant, now much admired in courtly circles." Fray Tomás's expression changed. "I know it," he said. "Too well. His agents have passed through the poorer quarters many times. They speak of opportunity. Often it ends in loss for those with little to spare." "Tell me," Alejandro said. The priest approached the table. "There was a family," he began, "a widowed mother with 2 sons. They invested a small inheritance into a venture promised by Herrera's representatives. They were told their money would grow. Instead, the ship they named was never truly part of the voyage they paid for. When they asked for answers, they received only letters with excuses, then silence. I have seen other such cases, not all tied directly to him perhaps, but the pattern is there." Alejandro's eyes darkened. "Why did you not come to the authorities?" Fray Tomás sighed. "Because those who suffer most are those with the least power to be heard, and those who benefit are often shielded by others who profit from their success. I have spoken where I could, but I am a simple priest, not a man of rank." "You are a man of conscience," Alejandro said. "That is rank enough, if anyone listens." He picked up another paper, a copied ledger. "Look here," he said. "The figures do not align. Taxes owed on these shipments are far higher than what was paid. Someone has devised a system to hide the difference. Herrera sits at the center of it. If that is so," Fray Tomás said, "then his rise has been built on the losses of many." Alejandro thought of the ball, the glittering hall, the proud smiles, and in the middle of it, a young woman standing alone, dismissed with a single cruel sentence. "Have you ever met his wife?" he asked. "Only at a distance," the priest replied. "She once attended a small charity gathering near the parish, accompanied by servants. She seemed gentle, a little lost. I had the impression she wished to stay longer among the children, but was hurried away." Alejandro closed his eyes briefly. The image fit what he had seen. "There is one more letter," he said, reaching for a folded sheet with a foreign seal. "From a contact in Amsterdam, he marked it as important." He broke the seal and read. The letter spoke frankly, the tone of a man who trusted that his words would remain in private hands. There it was, a description of a scheme by which Spanish officials were misled, shipments declared at false values, and profits shared between intermediaries. Near the end, he saw the familiar name. "I must praise our friend Herrera," the writer had added. "He has found ways to dance between law and advantage so gracefully that the crown smiles while we prosper at its expense." Alejandro read the sentence twice. Slowly, his fingers folded the letter along its crease. Fray Tomás watched him. "What will you do?" the priest asked. Alejandro stared at the folded paper, feeling the weight of the choice before him, to act and stir powerful opposition, or to remain silent and let injustice continue. "Injustice depends on silence," he said at last. "I cannot offer it mine. Such deceit cannot stand." Spring advanced, but the air in Martin's study felt colder each day. The ledgers lay open on his desk, rows of numbers marching across the pages. He tapped a finger against a column, then pushed the book away. "The figures are sound," he muttered. "They have always been sound." A servant appeared in the doorway. "Don Martin," he said, "a messenger from the banking house asks if you are at leisure to receive him." "Let him in," Martin replied, straightening his coat. A clerk entered, hat in hand, his expression polite but constrained. "Señor Herrera," he said, "I bring regards from the director and a small matter to discuss." "Small matters do not require visits," Martin said. "Sit. Speak." The clerk sat carefully on the edge of the chair. "There has been talk," he began, "of increased inspections at the port. Some officials have raised questions over declared values." The director thought it wise to reassess certain arrangements until matters are clearer. Reassess, Martine repeated. What do you mean by that? The clerk cleared his throat. Some lines of credit will be limited. Temporarily, of course. Until the Crown's representatives are satisfied. It is nothing personal. Nothing personal, Martine said slowly. Yet it affects my shipments, my operations, my reputation. How is that nothing? The house must protect itself, the clerk replied. We are bound by the Crown's scrutiny. Martine's mouth tightened. Tell your director I will remember this caution when next he asks for opportunities others cannot offer him. The clerk flushed. I am only the messenger, senor. Then carry the message, Martine said curtly. You may go. The man bowed and left. The door closed. Silence expanded. From the doorway of the adjoining room, Isabel watched, unseen for a moment, as Martine paced between the desk and the window. She stepped forward quietly. Is something wrong? She asked. He turned sharply. You did not knock. I heard voices, she said. I wondered if you needed anything. What I need, he replied, is a wife who does not appear at doorways like a shadow. She swallowed. Forgive me, I only wished to help. Help? He said bitterly. How could you help with men who tremble at the Crown's whisper? They reduce credit, they question figures, and I am left to defend myself while you stand safely behind padded doors. She hesitated. Are they questioning your honesty? Honesty? He scoffed. Honesty is whatever the powerful decide it is this week. I have done nothing others do not do, yet they come to me as if I were a criminal. She stepped closer. If you have done nothing wrong, the truth will protect you. He stared at her, then laughed once, short and sharp. How charmingly simple, he said. Truth will protect me. Truth protects those who can afford to display it. The rest must manage as they can. Her hands tightened around the folds of her gown. I did not mean to offend. I only thought, you thought, he interrupted. Again, leave thinking about these matters to me. You would do better to concern yourself with the child's layette. He turned away. The conversation was over. In the weeks that followed, small signs gathered like clouds on the horizon. A letter from an associate in Lisbon, suddenly cautious. An official at the port asking for additional documents with too much courtesy. A nobleman cancelling a dinner, explaining in graceful phrases that circumstances have changed. Each time, Martine's jaw grew a little tighter. One evening, Isabel found him standing in front of the cold fireplace, his hands clasped behind his back. Another letter? She asked gently. He did not answer at once. Then he said, It seems certain people in Madrid have taken an interest in my affairs. What people? She asked. The kind who sit in high chairs and wag their fingers at those who build the trade that fills their coffers, he replied. The kind who send inspectors instead of thanks. Is it because of the Duke of Navarra? She asked before she could stop herself. He turned slowly. Why do you ask that? At the gathering here, she said. He spoke of duty, of the Crown's interests. He seemed attentive. Attentive, Martine repeated, his eyes narrowing. Yes, the Duke has been attentive. Too much so if the whispers are true. They say he is asked to see certain records, that he questions certain practices. Then perhaps he simply wishes to be sure all is just, she said quietly. Just. He tasted the word as if it were bitter. You speak of justice as if it were a poem, Isabel. In the world where I gained what you enjoy, justice is a tool. Some wield it, some are crushed by it. She looked at him steadily. I do not enjoy seeing you worried. You enjoy the house, the clothes, the respect people show you because of my name, he said. Do not pretend otherwise. I would enjoy a simpler life if it meant peace between us, she replied. His gaze sharpened. Do not romanticize poverty. It is not a song. It is hunger and cold. I rose above it. I will not let any man drag me back. I did not say I wanted hunger, she answered. Only that I would choose kindness over cruelty, even in smaller rooms. Kindness does not pay for smaller rooms, he snapped, nor for the physician who will attend you when the child comes. Remember that. She fell silent. Something in her hardened. Quietly. Outside the Herrera house, Alejandro's days grew busier. He visited officials, spoke with men whose silence had begun to crack under his calm questions. In one office near the port, a customs clerk laid trembling fingers over a ledger. I did not want to be part of it, the man said. They told me to enter the figures as instructed. I have a wife, children. What could I do? You could tell the truth now, Alejandro said. It will cost you less than continuing to hide it. The clerk swallowed. If I speak, others will know. They will blame me instead of the man who gave the orders. You will not stand alone, Alejandro replied. I will ensure your testimony is not lost among louder voices. Bit by bit, the net drew tight. One afternoon, Alejandro met the Marqués de Villaseca in a private room at a club. You wish to speak of Herrera, the Marquis said, swirling his wine. I hope it is in praise. I have much tied to his success. Alejandro sat opposite him. I wish to speak of caution, he said. Much is surfacing regarding his methods. The Marquis frowned faintly. Methods that have enriched many, Your Grace, including the crown. Enriched, Alejandro said. Yes, but at whose ultimate expense? There is evidence of unpaid duties, falsified declarations, harm to those who trusted his word. The Marquis waved a hand. Tricks of trade. Nothing new. They are crimes, Alejandro replied evenly, and they have reached a scale that can no longer be dismissed as tricks. Royal councils will not ignore them. The Marquis shifted in his chair. You speak as if such councils have already judged him. I speak as someone who sits near the men who will decide which threads to pull, Alejandro said, and I am advising you, as an ally to Spain, to consider how closely you wish to be bound to a rope that is fraying. The Marquis pursed his lips. If he falls, others will be pulled with him. The structure will shake. Better it shake now, Alejandro said, than later, when it can bury more under its collapse. The Marquis regarded him for a moment, then sighed. You are relentless when you take up a cause, he said. Very well. I will review my connections quietly. Do not expect public declarations. I am not eager to join him in the flames if this becomes a spectacle. I expect nothing beyond prudence, Alejandro replied, and perhaps a little less praise uttered in drawing rooms. The Marquis lifted his glass. You ask much, he said, but I know you do not ask without reason. Back at the Herrera house, the atmosphere grew more strained by the day. The servants moved carefully, as if noise alone might trigger Martin's temper. He did not shout often, but when he spoke, his words were sharpened. Isabel noticed that he spent longer hours shut away with his papers, emerging with a stiffness in his shoulders. At meals, he ate little. When she asked if the food displeased him, he brushed the question aside. The food is fine, he said. It is the taste in my mouth that is bitter. Perhaps the physician should see you, she suggested. Stress can... I do not need a physician, he said. I need men who keep their word. One morning, as she poured his chocolate, he stared at her hands. You seem composed, he said suddenly. She looked up, surprised. Should I not be? You do not ask as many questions as before, he said. You do not apologize as often. Have you lost interest in my affairs? She set the pot down carefully. I have learned, she said, that my questions stir your irritation, and my apologies do not calm it. I am still interested, but I cannot carry the weight of what you will not share. He eyed her. You are sharper than you pretend. I do not pretend, she answered quietly. I simply speak less. That may be an improvement, he muttered, as long as silence does not become defiance. Silence can be its own prison, she said, meeting his gaze. Defiance, at least, lets one breathe. He stared at her, as if he were seeing her for the first time in months. Then he pushed his chair back. I have no time for riddles, he said. There is talk that inspectors will call again this week. I must be prepared. Later that day, while Martin was out, Beatrice visited once more. They sat near the open window, the air soft with distant sounds of the street. How much longer until the child comes? Beatrice asked, watching her cousin's hand move gently over her rounded belly. Not long, Isabel said. The physician believes it will be before summer ends. You will be a wonderful mother, Beatrice said. You're already gentle with everyone else. Isabel smiled faintly. I hope I will be wise as well as gentle. The child will need both. A knock sounded. A servant entered. His Grace the Duke of Navarra is here, he announced. He asks if Don Martin is at home. Isabel's heart leapt, then dropped. He is not, she said. He went to the port. Did the Duke leave a message? He is in the hall, the servant said. He asks whether you would receive him briefly regarding a matter of charity your husband mentioned. Isabel glanced at Beatrice, who raised her brows. "You cannot refuse a duke," Beatrice murmured, "and charity harms no one." "Very well," Isabel said. "Show him to the small salon. We will receive him there." Alejandro stood when they entered. He bowed to both ladies. "Doña Isabel," he said. "Doña Beatriz, forgive this intrusion. I had hoped to find Don Martin, but since he is absent, I did not wish to leave without delivering a message that may interest you." "Please sit," Isabel said. "You are welcome." They took their seats. A servant brought refreshments and withdrew. "What matter of charity, Your Grace?" Isabel asked. "My husband did not speak to me of it. He mentioned in passing at our last meeting," Alejandro said, "that he wished to associate his name with a fund for widows of sailors. I thought it a worthy idea and began to organize it. However, I have since heard nothing further and wondered if the household still held interest." Isabel blinked. "Widows of sailors?" "Yes," Alejandro replied. "Those who lose their husbands at sea often find themselves with nothing. A fund could offer small pensions, enough to spare them the worst of hardship." "That would be a kindness," Isabel said. "I did not know Martin considered it." "I suspect he mentioned it in haste, in front of certain men whose favor he wished," Alejandro said. "Whether his interest was genuine or strategic, I cannot say, but the need is real." "Widows are easy to forget," Beatrice said quietly. "They have no voice in salons, which is why those who do have a voice must sometimes speak for them," Alejandro replied. Isabel looked thoughtful. "If the fund is created, could it be organized so that donations are not only in coin but also in work? Sewing, teaching, things they can offer in return. It may help them feel less like burdens." Alejandro smiled faintly. "You think not only of relief, but of dignity. That is rare." "I have seen how quickly people pity and then move on," she said. "Pride does not feed children, but it keeps a woman from breaking." "I will remember your words when we shape the fund," Alejandro said. "Perhaps you would be willing in time to advise on how it is administered, quietly if you prefer." She hesitated. "I am not trained for such matters." "You are trained by life," he replied. "That is often more valuable than ledgers." Beatrice looked between them, her eyes soft. "Isabel has always been able to see where people hurt," she said, "even as a child. And yet she is asked to stand silent now," Alejandro said, not unkindly. Isabel's cheeks colored. "You must not think ill of my husband on my account," she said. "He bears great pressure. I think of his choices, not of him alone," Alejandro answered. "Pressure reveals what lies beneath. Sometimes it brings out strength, sometimes something else." He stayed only a short while longer, discussing practical matters for the fund, then rose. "I will not overstay in your husband's house in his absence," he said. "I thank you for receiving me." "It was an honor," Isabel replied. "If the fund can ease even a little suffering, I am grateful to have heard of it." He bowed and left. As the door closed, Beatrice turned to her cousin. "I like him," she said simply. "He speaks to you as if your thoughts matter." "They do not matter in this house," Isabel said. "In this house," Beatrice replied, "but not everywhere." When Martin returned later that afternoon, the footman informed him of the Duke's visit as he removed his coat. "The Duke of Navarra was here," Martin repeated sharply. "And I was not." "He came to speak of a charitable fund," the footman said. "Doña Isabel received him in the small salon with Doña Beatriz present." Martin's expression darkened. He strode toward the salon. Isabel was alone there now, mending a small linen shirt for the baby. "The Duke was here," he said without greeting. "Why did you entertain him without sending word to me?" She looked up, startled. "There was no time. He came briefly about a fund for widows. He said you had mentioned it." He laughed, short and harsh. "A passing remark, repeated to impress some men, and suddenly he thinks my house is open for his moral crusades." "He believed you would be pleased," she said. "He did not linger. Beatrice was here the entire time." "Ah, yes, Beatrice," he said. "Your ever-present witness. Do you think her presence shields you from impropriety?" Her brows drew together. "Impropriety? We spoke of charity, Martin?" "A duke in my house while I am away," he said. "A duke who has been sniffing around my affairs. A duke who dared to contradict me at a ball. And my wife speaks with him alone in my salon." "Not alone," she said. "Beatrice, do not play with words," he snapped. Do you think people will note Beatrice's presence or the image of the Duke of Navarra seated in intimate conversation with my wife? It was not intimate, she protested. The door was open. Servants came and went. You are naive, he said. Or worse, you enjoy the attention. Her eyes widened. Enjoy? You think I enjoy being the subject of whispers? You enjoyed his defense of you at the ball, Martine said. You enjoyed his concern in my corridor. Do not deny it. I was grateful, she replied, her voice shaking now. Grateful that someone saw me as more than a burden. His face hardened. So that is what I am to you. A man who burdens you with a house, with comfort, with protection. You are ungrateful, Isabel. That is not what I said, she whispered. You spoke with him today about what? He demanded. Widows, she said. The fund. Ways they might work for their support. Nothing more. Nothing more, he said slowly. Just plans to parade my generosity in public while he digs into my accounts in private. He did not speak of your accounts, she said. Only of those women. Do you imagine he came here because he cares for widows? Martine asked. He came to see how easy it is to step into my home, into my wife's good graces while I am away. That is unjust, she said, color rising in her cheeks. You know I would never betray you. Not with a duke, not with any man. He stared at her, breathing hard. Betrayal does not always begin in bed, he said. Sometimes it begins with listening ears and sympathetic eyes. Tears pricked her eyes, but she held them back. I listened because he spoke of people who suffer, she said. I have not betrayed you. I stand in this house every day, alone with your temper and your silence. Do not accuse me of seeking escape in the gaze of another man. You grow bold, he said coldly. Boldness does not suit you. Perhaps it is all that keeps me from disappearing entirely, she replied. They faced each other in the quiet room, the distance between them filled with words that could not be unsaid. At last, Martine turned away. From this moment, he said, you will not receive anyone I have not approved in advance, duke or not. Do you understand? I am not a child, she said softly. Then stop behaving like one, he answered. I will not have my household turned into a stage for other men's moral plays. He left her there, clutching the tiny shirt in her hands, the needle pricking unnoticed into her finger. A small bead of blood formed. She wiped it away without a sound. That night, the house seemed to hold its breath. Martine worked late in his study, shuffling papers, writing letters with a stiff hand. Isabel lay awake, listening to the faint scratching of his pen through the wall. Near midnight, hoofbeats sounded in the courtyard. A sharp knock echoed through the hall. Voices rose, urgent but muffled. Isabel sat up. After a moment, she heard footsteps approaching, then a knock at her door. Doña Isabel, the housekeeper called softly. Forgive the hour. A royal messenger has arrived. He brings a sealed summons for Don Martin. Isabel's heart thudded. Has he seen it? He is reading it now, the woman said, her voice low. He asked for more candles. He did not speak. Isabel rose, wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, and stepped into the corridor. Light spilled from the half-open door of the study. She halted at the threshold. Martine sat at his desk, the wax seal of the crown broken beside his hand. The letter trembled slightly between his fingers. His face, usually so controlled, had gone pale. Martine? She asked. What is it? He looked up at her, eyes dark with something like disbelief and fear mingled. They have summoned me, he said slowly. The Royal Council itself demands that I appear and answer for irregularities in my dealings. The sun over Madrid shone as if nothing in the world were troubled, but inside the Herrera house, dawn brought no comfort. Isabel sat at the small table in her chamber, untouched bread on a plate before her. She had slept little. The image of Martine's pale face with the royal summons in his hand had burned behind her eyes all night. A knock sounded. She straightened. Enter, she called. Martine stepped in. His coat was already on, his cravat tied with unusual care. Yet his movements were stiff, his expression guarded. You are leaving early, she said. The council does not wait on merchants, he answered. When they call, we run. Will you have something to eat? She asked. You should not go on an empty stomach. My stomach has no space for bread, he said. Only for bile. She rose slowly, one hand on her belly. May I walk with you as far as the carriage? She asked. He looked at her for a moment, as if weighing the cost. "If you must," he said, "do not delay me." They went down the stairs together. Servants watched from doorways with careful eyes. At the main door, the carriage awaited, horses stamping lightly. Isabel turned to him. "Martin," she said quietly, "no matter what they say, remember that you are not alone. I am still your wife." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "My wife," he said. "Who finds comfort in the gaze of dukes and speaks of widows with men who would undo me?" "That is not fair," she replied. "I have never wished you harm." "Wishes are nothing," he said. "Words are everything. The words they will speak today could strip me of all I have built." "Then answer with truth," she said. "If you have done right, trust it." His eyes flashed. "You speak as if you know the rules of my world. You do not. Pray, if you like, but do not preach." She swallowed. "I will pray," she said. "You cannot forbid that." He said nothing. He climbed into the carriage, the door closed, and the wheels rolled away. Isabel stood watching until it disappeared at the corner. The wind caught the edge of her shawl. She pulled it tighter around her shoulders and turned back inside. In the council chamber, the air was cool and formal. High windows let in slanting light. A circle of chairs had been arranged around a central table piled with papers. At one end sat the royal representatives, at the other chairs for those called to speak. Alejandro de Navarra arrived early. He greeted the officials with measured courtesy, then took his seat slightly apart, close enough to be heard, far enough not to dominate. "Your Grace," one of the councillors said, "you have brought the materials we requested." "I have," Alejandro replied. "They are in order, with summaries to ease your review." He placed a neat stack of documents on the table. Seals, signatures, ledgers copied by careful hands, letters translated where necessary. Martin entered a short time later. His steps did not falter, but there was a tightness around his mouth that had not been there months before. He bowed to the council. "Gentlemen," he said, "I come as summoned, prepared to answer any question you may have." "We are pleased to hear it," said the senior councillor, a man with grey hair pulled back and eyes like polished stones. "Let us begin." He gestured to a scribe. "Read the summons," he ordered. The scribe unrolled a parchment. "By order of His Majesty's Council," he read, "Don Martin Herrera of Seville, merchant and investor, is called to give account of certain irregularities detected in port declarations, customs duties, and contracts affecting the Crown's revenue." Martin inclined his head. "I am ready to clarify any confusion." "Good," the councillor said. "Clarity is what we seek. We will start with records from Cadiz." Alejandro watched as a ledger was brought forward. "These figures," the councillor said, tapping the page, "show the declared value of a shipment of sugar, yet reports from the receiving port indicate that the actual amount landed was nearly double." "Reports can be mistaken," Martin replied smoothly. "Men miscount, confuse one shipment with another." "Perhaps," the councillor said, "but we have multiple such cases." Another ledger. Another discrepancy. Then a letter, the one Alejandro had folded carefully night after night. "Do you recognize this writing?" the councillor asked. Martin glanced at it. "It appears to be that of a foreign associate," he said. "I correspond with many." "Read the final lines aloud, please," the councillor said. Martin hesitated, then read, voice tight. "I must praise our friend Herrera. He has found ways to dance between law and advantage so gracefully that the Crown smiles while we prosper at its expense." Silence followed. The words seemed to hover over the table. "I do not control how others describe me," Martin said finally. "People use bold phrases to flatter." "Perhaps," the councillor said again, "but we prefer evidence to flattery. Several officials and witnesses have come forward. We will hear from them now." The door opened. A customs clerk entered, hat in hand, eyes downcast. Alejandro recognized him from their meeting. "State your name and position," the councillor said. The man did so, voice unsteady. "You have worked how long at the port?" the councillor asked. 10 years, sir," the man replied. "And during that time, have you handled declarations related to shipments organized by Don Martin Herrera?" "Yes, sir," he said. "What did you observe?" the councillor asked. The clerk swallowed. "There were instructions," he said. Some shipments were to be declared at lower values than the cargo truly held. I was told it was customary, that if I refused, there were others who would be less difficult. Who gave these instructions? The counselor asked. The man's gaze flicked toward Martin, then toward Alejandro, then back to the table. Agents of Don Martin, he said, and once himself in a letter. Do you have that letter? The counselor asked. I kept a copy, the clerk said, out of fear and conscience. The paper was produced. The counselor read aloud a line, a cold phrase about adjusting declarations to spare unnecessary burdens. These burdens were taxes owed to the crown, the counselor said quietly. Everyone does it, Martin said. If you punish me, you must punish half the merchants of Spain. Half the merchants of Spain are not before us today, the counselor replied. You are. Next came Fray Tomas. He walked with calm steps, his hands folded. You are a priest, the counselor said. What concern is trade to you? My concern is souls, the priest replied, and the lives harmed by what some call trade. Speak plainly, the counselor said. I have seen families who invested their savings in ventures associated with Don Martin's men, Fray Tomas said. They were promised sure returns. Instead, they received excuses, then silence. I do not say he personally visited them, but his name lent his agents power. Do you have proof these ventures were fraudulent? The counselor asked. I have letters, the priest replied, and the testimony of those who lost almost everything. I place both in your hands. Alejandro watched Martin's face as the papers passed from hand to hand. Pride warred with mounting unease. The Marqués de Villaseca was called next. He entered with his usual grace but less swagger. You have had dealings with Don Martin, the counselor said. Is that correct? I have invested in some of his ventures, yes, the Marquis answered. Did you benefit? The counselor asked. I did, the Marquis replied, though I now see that some of that benefit may have been inappropriately acquired. Did you know of the irregular declarations? The counselor asked. I was aware, the Marquis said carefully, that certain values were adjusted. I accepted the explanation that such adjustments were standard in trade. It appears I was too trusting, or too willing to profit, the counselor said dryly. The Marquis inclined his head. Perhaps that as well. Do you stand ready to assist in correcting these injustices? The counselor asked. I will cooperate fully, the Marquis replied, and I am prepared to return certain profits as justice requires. It was a blow. Martin's eyes flashed. You abandon me, he said. After all you gained through me. I preserve myself, the Marquis answered softly. I advise you to think of preserving what honor you may. Alejandro finally spoke. Gentlemen, he said, addressing the council, the documents you hold, the testimonies you have heard, form a coherent pattern. This is not a case of minor errors. It is a deliberate structure built to extract wealth at the crown's expense and at the cost of those with little protection. Martin turned toward him. You have hunted me, he said. From the night at the ball, you decided to destroy me. I decided, Alejandro said calmly, to look more closely at a man whose public behavior suggested a dangerous disregard for others. The evidence, not my feelings, condemned you. You call yourself just, Martin hissed, but you are no better than I. You use your position to strike. I use my position to correct a wrong, Alejandro replied. I gain nothing personally from this, except perhaps a little more sleep. We are not here to discuss motives, the counselor said. We are here to judge actions. We will retire briefly to confer. The councillors withdrew to an adjoining room. The chamber fell into a tense quiet. Martin stood alone in the center, hands clenched at his sides. Alejandro remained seated, gaze steady but not triumphant. After what felt like an age, the councillors returned. Don Martin, the senior councillor said, this council finds sufficient evidence of serious irregularities in your dealings. While a full investigation will continue, certain measures must be taken immediately. Measures, Martin repeated. His voice had gone flat. Your accounts will be seized and examined, the councillor said. Your trading privileges are suspended for the duration of the inquiry. Properties directly tied to the questioned ventures will be placed under temporary administration. You would strip me of all I have built, Martin said. We strip you of the means by which the crown was deceived, the councillor replied. As for your person, you will remain in Madrid and be available for further questioning. You are not to leave the city without permission." "This is injustice," Martin said. "Others do worse and go untouched. Why me?" "Because your actions have been brought to light," the counselor said. "Others may yet follow. For now, you will accept our decision." Martin drew a sharp breath, as if the air had grown thin. "Is that all?" he asked. "For today," the counselor answered. "You may go." Martin turned, shoulders rigid. As he passed Alejandro, he paused. "You have won, Your Grace," he said softly. "Enjoy my ruin." Alejandro met his eyes. "I take no joy in any ruin," he said, "least of all in the wreckage a man makes of his own honor." "Spare me your sermons," Martin said, and left. Back at the Herrera house, the atmosphere seemed to already know something had shifted. Servants spoke in whispers. Rumors traveled faster than carriages. Isabel waited in the sitting room, hands folded. Beatrice sat beside her, trying to distract her with light conversation, but both kept glancing toward the door. At last, footsteps sounded in the hall. Martin entered, moving as if each step cost effort. He removed his hat slowly, placed it on the table and stood staring at it. "What did they say?" Isabel asked, rising. He did not answer. "Martin?" she pressed. He turned his head, eyes dull. "They have taken everything," he said. "Not yet in name, but in power. My accounts, my ships, my contracts, all under scrutiny. I am forbidden to trade as I did. They will peel away what I built, layer by layer, until there is nothing left." Beatrice rose quietly. "I will leave you," she murmured to Isabel. "You should talk alone." "No," Martin said sharply. "Let her stay. Why not have a witness? The city already watches. One more pair of eyes will make no difference." Beatrice hesitated. "Are you sure?" Isabel asked. "I have never been more sure of anything," Martin said. "Stay, Senora. Hear how your cousin speaks to a man who has fallen." Beatrice bit her lip but resumed her seat. Isabel stepped closer to her husband. "I am sorry," she said. "This must be terrible." "Terrible?" he echoed. "Do you even understand what terrible means? To stand before men who have never risked a coin in their lives and hear them tell you that the foundation of your work is rotten. If they have found faults," she said carefully, "perhaps they can be corrected." "Corrected?" He laughed harshly. "You speak as if this were a miscalculation in a recipe. This is an earthquake, and the Duke of Navarra pressed the first stones loose. You made choices long before the Duke looked at your papers," she said. "You cannot blame him for all of them." He stared at her. "You side with him," he said slowly. "I see it in your eyes. You think him noble, just, heroic." "I think he has acted where others preferred silence," she replied. "I think he cares for the law, for the crown, for people harmed by practices like yours." He stepped closer, his voice low. "And you think I do not care?" he demanded. "Do you imagine I never thought of the men at the docks, the widows, the clerks? I imagine," she said, "that when you thought of them, you thought first of what they could do for you." His jaw worked. "I gave you everything," he said. "House, security, position. Without me, you would still be in that modest home sewing by a single candle." "I would rather sew by one candle with respect," she said quietly, "than sit in 10 rooms lit by crystal while being told, night after night, that I am unworthy of walking at my husband's side." He flinched, as if the words struck some nerve. "You use my own words against me," he said. "I use the truth," she answered. "You have humiliated me in front of strangers. You have silenced me at your table. Now you ask me to weep for the fall of an empire built in part on lies. I will weep for the people hurt, for the child who may see his father's name whispered in shame. But I cannot pretend surprise that a structure without honesty has begun to crack." He stared at her. For a moment, something like regret flickered through his eyes. Then pride smothered it. "You know nothing of what it took to climb," he said. "You judged me safe from the ground. I know what it took to live beside you while you climbed," she replied. "To be used as a proof of respectability while being reminded I did not deserve to stand where you placed me. No man ruins his life as skillfully as one who believes himself above correction." "Enough," he said. "I will not be lectured in my own house." She folded her hands over her belly. "Then do not ask for my sympathy while you refuse my honesty," she said. "You cannot have both." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Beatrice watched, hardly daring to breathe. At last he moved toward the door. "Where are you going?" Isabel asked. "To consult with lawyers," he said, "to salvage what I can. Someone in this house must act instead of judging. Lawyers cannot rebuild what conscience has never guided," she said softly. He paused but did not turn. "You will soon learn," he said, "what it means to live without the comforts my name brought you." "I have already learned," she answered. "It means I will still have my child, my faith and the hope that one day this house will not be built on fear." He left without another word. The door closed. Silence settled. Beatrice let out a shaky breath. "I should not have stayed," she said. "I feel as if I watched something private break." "It broke long ago," Isabel said. "Today only showed the cracks." She sat down slowly, tiredness washing over her. The child moved under her hand, as if reminding her of its presence. "Will you be all right?" Beatrice asked. "I do not know what all right means anymore," Isabel said, "but I know I cannot go back to who I was." Days turned into a strange waiting. News of Martin's fall spread through Madrid. Some spoke with satisfaction, others with unease. Former allies grew distant. Creditors sent notes written in careful, cautious phrases. Alejandro, meanwhile, attended further sessions, ensuring that the inquiry moved with fairness, not vengeance. He spoke when necessary, stepped back when others needed to be heard. In quieter hours he thought of Isabel, of her stillness at the ball, her questions in the corridor, her concern for widows, and wondered how she was faring inside the house whose foundations he had helped shake. One afternoon, after a long meeting about the transition of certain properties to Crown control, he approached the senior councillor. "There is one personal request I wish to make," he said. "We do not grant personal favors in such matters," the councillor replied. "I know," Alejandro said. "This is not about leniency for Herrera. It is about protection for his wife." The councillor studied him. "Go on." "She bears a child," Alejandro said. "She had no part in his dealings. Yet if we are not careful, she will suffer more than he through gossip, through sudden poverty, through being blamed by those who prefer a simple story." "What would you have us do?" the councillor asked. "Ensure that some portion of their unaffected property is reserved for her maintenance and the child's," Alejandro said. "It would not harm the investigation. It would show that the Crown distinguishes between guilt and innocence under the same roof." The councillor considered. "You ask much," he said again, "but perhaps not too much. I will see what can be done." "Thank you," Alejandro replied. A few days later, a formal letter arrived at the Herrera house. Martin opened it with unsteady hands. He scanned the lines, then let out a rough breath. "What is it?" Isabel asked. He stared at her, an odd mix of relief and resentment in his eyes. "They have decided," he said. "Certain properties not directly tied to my questioned ventures will be left in partial control. Enough to maintain a modest household, they say, for appearances, for innocence under my roof." "Innocence," she repeated. They mean you," he said, "and the child. It seems you have friends in high places." She frowned. "I have asked nothing of anyone." He folded the letter. "Someone has asked on your behalf," he said. "I can guess who." She thought of the Duke, his steady gaze, his quiet way of listening. "Perhaps," she said. "If so, I am grateful. Even if you are not," he gave a hollow laugh. "Grateful for the mercy that comes through the hand that unmade me." "You surprise me again. You unmade yourself," she said gently. "Others simply refuse to keep knitting the illusion." He sank into a chair. "Leave me," he said. "I am tired." She withdrew, her heart heavy but not crushed. For the first time she felt a small, solid ground forming beneath her feet, uncertain but not entirely dependent on Martin's mood. A few days later, a note arrived with the seal of Navarra. It was addressed to Isabel. She turned it over in her hands, hesitant. "Who is it from?" Beatrice asked. "The Duke," Isabel said. "He asks to speak with me regarding the outcome of the council. He requests that you be present, Beatrice, for propriety." "Will Martin permit it?" Beatrice asked. "He no longer dictates every breath I take," Isabel said quietly. "But I will inform him." She found Martin in his study. "I have received a note from the Duke of Navarra," she said. "He wishes to speak with me, with Beatrice present, about the council's decision regarding my support and the child's." "Of course he does," Martin muttered. "The noble savior, visiting the fallen merchant's wife. "Will you forbid it?" she asked. He looked at her for a long moment. "If I forbid it," he said slowly, "you will think me afraid. If I permit it, you will think me defeated." "I will think you reasonable," she replied, for once. A weary smile tugged at his mouth, quickly gone. "Do as you wish," he said. "Perhaps he will reassure you that you are blameless. It seems the world is eager to tell you so." "The world did not see inside this house," she said. "But it saw enough." She left before he could answer. Alejandro arrived the next afternoon. The house, though quieter than before, still had an air of restrained dignity. A servant led him to a modest salon, simpler than the entertainment rooms of earlier days. Isabel entered with Beatrice. She wore a plain gown, her figure full with late pregnancy, but her posture calm. "Your Grace," she said, curtsying, "thank you for coming." "Thank you for receiving me," he replied. "I know this cannot be an easy time." She sat, Beatrice beside her. Alejandro took the chair opposite. "I will speak plainly," he said. "The council's decisions are severe, but in their view necessary. I did not wish you to learn their full meaning only through your husband's account." "He told me some of it," she said, "that his accounts are seized, that we must live more modestly." "That is true," Alejandro said. "But it is also true that at my request, the council has ensured certain properties remain reserved for your maintenance and that of your child. You will not be left destitute." Her eyes widened. "You asked that," she said. "Yes," he replied, "because justice without mercy becomes cruelty, and because you have done nothing to deserve ruin." She blinked rapidly, mastering her emotion. "I do not know how to thank you," she said. "You have already done so much." "I did what any man of conscience should," he said. "Nothing more." Beatrice spoke up. "Few men of conscience hold the power you do," she said, "and fewer use it for anyone outside their own house." Alejandro glanced at her with a small smile. "I cannot repair all that has been broken," he said, "but I can at least place some stones where the collapse might otherwise bury those who had no hand in building the structure." "You speak like a mason," Isabel said softly. "Carefully placing stones. My father used to say governance is not so different," Alejandro answered. "We decide what to carry, what to remove, what to shore up." There was a brief silence. Then he looked directly at Isabel. "Doña Isabel," he said, "there is something else I must say, not as a duke but as a man who has watched your courage in silence." Her breath caught. Beatrice looked down at her hands, giving them space without leaving. "I have seen you humiliated in public, and yet stand without collapsing," he said. "I have seen you bear unkindness with a dignity that shamed those who witnessed it. I have heard you speak of widows and children as if their pain were your own. These things do not leave a man indifferent. I never meant for anyone to see," she said, "or to pity me." "I do not pity you," he replied. "I respect you, and more than that, I have come to care for you, in a way I did not expect when I watched you cross that ballroom the first night." She stared at him, heart pounding. "You hardly know me," she whispered. "I know enough," he said gently. "Enough to know that any life I build from this point, I would wish to share with someone who has looked into sorrow and not become hard, who has endured disdain and not lost kindness. You are such a person." Beatrice lifted her eyes briefly, then lowered them again, a faint smile touching her lips. "I speak now not to bind you," Alejandro continued, "for I know you are not yet free in the eyes of the church or the law from the bond you carry. Your husband still lives, your child is not yet born. Your life is in a state of great change. I will not add pressure to that weight." "Then why speak?" she asked, her voice unsteady. "Because I want you to know," he said, "that beyond this storm there may exist a shore where you are neither an ornament nor a burden, but a companion. If in time circumstances permit and your heart inclines that way, I would be honored to walk that path with you. If not, I will still remain a friend to your welfare as far as I am allowed." Tears slipped down her cheeks, slow and silent. "No one has ever spoken to me like this," she said. "Always as someone to present, to manage, to correct, never as someone to walk beside. You have always deserved such speech," he said. "It was only withheld, not unwarranted." "I am afraid," she admitted, "afraid that I will leave one cage only to enter another, afraid that I no longer know how to trust a man who claims to care for me." "Your fear is wise," he said. "I would not ask you to simply lay it aside. All I can promise is that I will never use your past against you, never raise my voice to diminish you, never treat your worth as a tool for my ambition. If you ever choose to trust me, you will do so slowly, with your eyes open, and I will be grateful for every step." Beatrice dabbed at her own eyes. "You speak as if love were a covenant, not a conquest," she said quietly. "Conquest breaks," Alejandro said. "Covenant endures, if tended." Isabel looked at him, seeing not the Duke in fine clothes, but the man who had stepped forward in a ballroom when others looked away. The man who had read letters by candlelight to bring truth into a place that preferred comfort. "I cannot answer you now," she said. "My life is still entangled. I do not know what shape it will take in the months ahead." "I do not seek an answer now," he replied. "Only your understanding that whatever you decide, I consider you worthy of more than you have received." "I understand," she said. He rose. "I will visit from time to time," he said, not as a suitor pressing his suit, but as a friend who wishes to ensure that justice does not forget mercy. "If you ever wish me to stop, you have only to say the word." "I do not think I will wish that," she answered honestly. He bowed to her, then to Beatrice. "May your child be born healthy and strong," he said, "and may its first sight of the world be of a mother who knows her own value." He left. The door closed softly behind him. Isabel sat very still. The house seemed quieter. The air changed somehow. Beatrice touched her arm. "Well?" she whispered. Isabel let out a long breath she had not realized she was holding. She placed both hands over her belly, feeling a faint movement answer her touch. "For the first time," she said slowly, "I feel as if the future is not only something that will happen to me, but something I might choose." The night her child was born was quieter than Isabel had imagined. No cries echoed through corridors, no frantic running of servants. Only the low voice of the midwife, the murmur of Beatrice's prayers, the soft creaking of the bed when another pain came. "Breathe, Isabel," the midwife said calmly. "You are stronger than you think." Isabel gripped the sheet. "I do not feel strong," she gasped. "That is how everyone feels at the door of something new," Beatrice said, wiping her forehead. "Then they cross, and only afterward they see what they have done." Hours blurred into one another. At last a shrill, insistent cry broke through the silence. The midwife lifted a small, damp body, then laughed softly. "A girl," she said, "stubborn and loud. She will not let life ignore her." Isabel lay back, tears on her cheeks, half from pain, half from something fiercer and softer all at once. "A girl," she whispered. "Let her never believe she is unworthy." The midwife laid the child in her arms. Tiny fingers flexed against Isabel's skin. For a moment the whole house disappeared. There was only this small warm weight and the sound of a thin but powerful voice. Beatrice smiled through her tears. "Have you thought of a name?" she asked. Isabel looked down at the baby's face. "Lucia," she said, "for light." "Lucia Herrera," Beatrice repeated, then corrected herself gently. "Lucia, daughter of Isabel. The rest will settle itself." Later, Fray Tomas came to bless the child. He stood at the foot of the bed, hands raised. "May she grow in wisdom and kindness," he prayed. "May she know her worth, and may those around her never forget it." "Amen," Isabel whispered, holding Lucia closer. When Martin finally entered the room, nearly a day had passed. He hovered at the doorway, thinner than before, his coat less immaculate. The lines around his mouth had deepened, and the set of his shoulders had changed from stiff pride to tired resistance. "You have a daughter," Isabel said quietly. He approached the bed slowly. "I had hoped for a son," he admitted. But he stopped. The child squirmed, making a small noise. Something flickered in his expression. "But she is here," he finished awkwardly. "May I see her?" She adjusted the blanket so he could look. He studied the tiny face, the delicate mouth, the dark fuzz of hair. "She is small," he said. "She will grow," Isabel replied. He hesitated, then extended a finger. Lucia's hand closed around it with surprising strength. Martin's brows rose. "She holds on," he murmured. "She will need to," Isabel said softly. He glanced at her. For a brief moment, some of his bitterness softened. "They have taken much from me," he said. "But not this. Not you, not her. Did they ever truly have us?" she asked. "Or did you simply place us on a shelf with your trophies?" He winced. "You do not spare me," he said. "Life has not spared me," she answered. "I have learned not to waste words." He looked at the child again. "The council continues its work," he said. "There will be more hearings, more decisions. I have been told it may be best if I leave Madrid when they are done, perhaps even Spain, for a time." "Exile," she said quietly. "A polite version of it," he replied. "Supervised commerce in a distant port. They will not jail me if I accept. They prefer me out of sight." "Will you go?" she asked. "What choice do I have?" he said. "Here, every door is closing. There at least I might find a small place to stand." "Without us," she said. He swallowed. "It seems," he said slowly, "that the best gift I can give my daughter is my absence." She stared at him. "That is not a gift," she said, "but it may be the first unselfish act you have made." He nodded once, as if accepting a sentence. "I have wronged you," he said. The words came out rough. "More than you will ever know. At first I thought I was shaping you to match my world. Then I realized I was breaking you to fit my pride. I do not expect forgiveness. I barely ask for it. But I hope one day you will tell her that I was not only the man who fell." "I will tell her the truth," Isabel replied, "that you were a man who chose many wrong roads and then, at the end, chose not to trap us on them. That will be enough." He nodded again, unable to speak. After a moment, he withdrew his finger from the baby's grip. "I will see the priest about arrangements," he said, "and the lawyers. There is still property that can be secured in your name. The Duke saw to that." She watched him closely. "You no longer curse his name?" she asked. "I curse my own more," he said. "He did what I would never have done in his place. He destroyed wealth to protect people. I used people to build wealth. In that comparison, I lose every time." He looked at her, something like resignation in his gaze. "Isabel," he said, "if life ever offers you a chance at a different kind of marriage built on respect rather than fear, take it. Do not cling to my memory out of duty. I have no right to demand that." She caught her breath. "You are my husband," she said. "Until death, that does not change." "It will," he said quietly, "sooner than you think." He left then, leaving the room full of silence and the soft sounds of Lucia's breathing. Weeks slipped into months. Lucia grew, her cries turning into coos, her tiny fingers reaching eagerly for everything. The house itself changed. One by one, pieces of expensive furniture disappeared, sold or claimed. The rooms felt emptier but less oppressive. Isabel adjusted without complaint. She learned to manage the household on reduced means, to reuse fabrics, to choose which luxuries were truly necessary. The servants who remained were loyal, more like companions than staff. Alejandro visited rarely at first, sending messages instead. He understood that the early months were for recovery, for adjustment, for grief and relief to untangle themselves. When he did come at last, Lucia was old enough to clutch the edge of a chair and pull herself upright with fierce determination. "She is like her mother," Alejandro said, watching the child stumble toward Isabel. "She refuses to stay down. Sometimes she refuses to sleep," Isabel replied, smiling. "But I forgive her." Lucia looked at the stranger with wide eyes, then reached toward him with an unsteady hand. He knelt at once. "May I?" he asked. "Of course," Isabel said. He extended his hand. Lucia grabbed his finger and tried to chew it. He laughed, a sound of genuine pleasure. "She has your courage," he said, "and I suspect your will." "She will need both," Isabel replied. "The world is not gentle with girls." "Then we will make at least one corner of it gentler," he said, "for her and for others like her." Their visits followed a gentle rhythm. He never arrived without sending word. Sometimes he brought practical gifts, linen, small shoes, a wooden rattle carved by a local craftsman. Other times he brought books for Isabel, carefully chosen travel accounts or devotional works he thought might interest her. "Why these?" she asked one day, turning a page. "Because they speak of journeys," he said, "and of hearts learning to trust the road beneath their feet." "You think my heart is still on a journey," she said. "I think it has not yet reached a resting place," he replied, "and I would not hurry it." News came, some months later, from across the ocean. A letter arrived with a foreign seal addressed to Isabel. Her hands trembled as she broke it. The words were simple, written by a man she did not know. "Madame," it began, It is my duty to inform you that Don Martin Herrera, formerly of Madrid, has died in our port after a brief fever. In his final hours, he spoke often of his wife and child. He entrusted this letter to me, along with another enclosed for you. Her vision blurred. Beatrice, sitting beside her, touched her arm. "Do you wish me to read it?" Beatrice asked softly. "No," Isabel said. "I must." She unfolded the second letter. Martin's handwriting, once firm, wavered slightly. "Isabel," it began, "it seems I will not return to Spain. The fever takes more than strength. It takes the illusions a man clings to. I have little time and even less right to your attention, so I will be plain. I was wrong. In so many ways I no longer have the words to list them. I chose pride over humility, image over truth, control over love. I used you to impress others and ignored the light in you that could have guided me better than any ledger. The Duke was my enemy in commerce, but my friend in justice. He forced me to face what I had become. Do not hate him on my account, I no longer do. If anything, I am grateful that he stopped me before my soul broke entirely. Tell our daughter that her father was a flawed man who loved her in his own clumsy way, and that his last wish was that she never marry a man like him. If life offers you a chance to know tenderness, take it. I have no claim on your future. I release you entirely in my heart, though the Church has its own language for such matters. May God be kinder to you than I was. Martine." The paper shook in her hands. Tears fell, not in a wild rush but in slow drops, each one carrying a piece of weight away. "I do not know what I feel," she said. "Grief, perhaps," Beatrice said, "for what was and for what never became what you hoped." "Yes," Isabel whispered. "And relief, and something like mercy." She folded the letter carefully. "I forgive him," she said quietly, "not because he earned it, but because I cannot carry him any further." For a year, she wore simple mourning. Alejandro did not press. He sent messages asking after Lucia's health, after her own strength, and came only when invited, always respectful. When the year was almost done, Fray Tomás visited. "Widows are often told what they must feel," he said gently. "Have many people told you how to grieve?" "Everyone does," she said, smiling faintly. "Some say I must be devastated, others that I must be grateful. Few ask what I truly feel." "Then I will ask," he said. "What do you truly feel now?" She looked out the window, where Lucia toddled in the garden under Beatrice's watchful eye. "I feel whole," she said slowly. "Not because everything is perfect, but because the pieces of my life no longer belong to another man's temper. I am sad for what might have been different. I am relieved for what will never repeat. And I am afraid of what comes next, even as I look forward to it. Fear and hope are often twins," the priest said. "One asks what if it goes wrong. The other asks what if it goes right. The heart must answer both. Mine is still debating," she said. "Then let it," he replied. "But do not leave it alone too long. Hearts stiffen in isolation." That evening, as if summoned by the thought, a note arrived from Alejandro. It was brief. "Doña Isabel," it read. "I leave soon for Navarra to attend to matters of my estate. Before I go, I wish to ask whether you would receive me one afternoon, to speak not of councils or properties, but simply of where your heart stands. If the time is not right, say so, and I will wait in silence. A." She read the lines twice. "What will you answer?" Beatrice asked. "I will say yes," Isabel replied. "I am tired of speaking only to myself." They met in the garden 2 days later. The sky was clear, the air soft. Lucia played a short distance away with a nurse and a ball, her laughter ringing like little bells. Alejandro stood when Isabel approached. He had come without attendance, dressed more simply than in court, yet carrying the same quiet assurance. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. "Thank you for asking," she replied. They walked slowly along the path bordered by low shrubs. For a few moments, neither spoke. The silence was not heavy, only careful. "I heard of your husband's death," he said at last. "I did not come sooner because I did not wish to intrude on mourning I could not fully understand." "You understood more than most," she said, "even when I tried to deny it." "Have you found peace with him?" he asked. "As much as I can," she answered. "He wrote before he died. He admitted what he had been. He even thanked you." "That is a surprise," Alejandro said quietly. He called you his enemy in commerce and his friend in justice, she said. He was not wrong. Then I will count that as one of my rare compliments from him, Alejandro replied. There were few. They shared a brief smile. You said you wished to speak of where my heart stands, she reminded him. I did, he said, but only if you are ready to know where mine remains. Say it plainly, she said. I have no taste left for pretty half-truths. He stopped, turning to face her fully. My heart, he said, stands where it has stood since I watched you walk out of that ballroom, alone and upright while your husband declared you unworthy. It stands beside you, not ahead of you, not behind you, beside you, at whatever distance you permit. Her throat tightened. You do not tire, she said. Even after all this time. Time has done nothing but deepen what I feel, he replied. I have watched you become a mother, a manager of a household, a woman who survived scandal without letting it define her. I have watched you forgive a man who never truly deserved your forgiveness. If I loved you for your quiet strength then, I love you now for the peace you are building from broken stones. You speak of love, she said. Are you certain it is not admiration or pity? Pity looks downward, he said. Admiration looks upward. Love looks level. I do not stand above or below you. I stand here offering my hand, willing to walk wherever you will walk. She looked down at that hand, then back at his face. I am afraid, she said softly. Afraid that if I take your hand, I will discover one day that I have simply traded one set of expectations for another. That I will again be a symbol, this time of your justice, your goodness, your reputation as a noble savior. He nodded. That is a fair fear, he said. I have a different one. What is yours, she asked. That you will never take my hand because of the shadow of a man who did not know how to hold it, he said. That his ghost will sit forever between us, reminding you of chains I never forged. How do we quiet both fears, she asked. Not with promises of perfection, he said. I cannot promise I will never be wrong, never be proud, never be foolish. I am human. But I can promise this. I will never treat your voice as an inconvenience. I will never use your presence as a shield for my ambition. And if ever you tell me I am hurting you, I will listen before defending myself. She laughed softly, a sound mixed with tears. You promise to listen, she said. It sounds simple, yet it is more than I have ever had. For me, it is the ground of everything, he replied. Without listening, there is no love, only arrangement. Lucia's ball rolled toward them. Alejandro bent, picked it up and handed it to the child as she toddled over. Take care of your mother, little one, he said. She is rarer than you know. Lucia stared at him, then wrapped her arms around Isabel's skirt. The simple gesture moved him more than he expected. You said once, Isabel recalled, that you would not rush me, that you would accept my answer whenever it came. That remains true, he said, even if your answer is no. She drew a breath, feeling its weight. My heart, she said slowly, has spent years learning to be small, to fit into spaces where it would not alarm anyone. You have been standing at the doorway of that small room, waiting, not forcing it open, only waiting. I see that. He watched her, saying nothing. I do not want to live in that room anymore, she continued. I want to walk in a house where every door can be opened without fear. I want my daughter to see a man and a woman speak as equals. I want to know what it is to love without apology. A tear slipped down her cheek. She did not wipe it away. If I choose you, she said, I am not choosing a duke or a savior or a man of justice. I am choosing the person who saw me when others looked away, the man who stepped forward when you had nothing to gain. I am choosing the friend who became something more even when I forbade myself to name it. You are choosing me, he said quietly. Not my title. Yes, she replied, and I am choosing you. His breath left him in a slow, almost disbelieving exhale. Isabel, he murmured. She held up a hand. On one condition, she said. Name it, he replied at once. Promise me, she said, that if ever I feel myself shrinking again, you will not accuse me of ingratitude, but will ask what in our life is making me small. Promise that we will fix it together, or walk away from whatever causes it. I promise, he said without hesitation. On my name and on the God who hears us now. She nodded. Then yes, she said. Yes, Alejandro. I will walk beside you, Not today to the altar, perhaps, but when the proper time has passed and the church has blessed it, I will become your wife." His eyes closed for a moment, as if he were offering up his own prayer. When he opened them, they shone. "May I?" he began, glancing at her hand. She smiled. "You have waited this long," she said. "You may take it now." He took her hand with a reverence that made her heart ache. He did not pull her closer at once. He simply held it, feeling the reality of her choice. "I have dreamed of this," he said, "but the reality humbles me more than any dream." Lucia tugged at Isabel's skirt again, impatient with this silent exchange. Isabel laughed. "Do you see, Lucia," she said, "we are learning to walk again, all three of us." The months that followed were full, but not frantic. The mourning period ended. Permissions were obtained, consultations with priests made, all in proper order. On a clear day, in a church that was neither the grandest in Madrid nor the smallest, Isabel stood at the entrance with Lucia, holding her hand, and Beatriz at her side. "You are sure?" Beatriz whispered one last time. "Yes," Isabel said. "There is fear, but it no longer rules me. It walks beside hope, and hope holds my hand more tightly." Alejandro waited at the front, simple and elegant, his expression both solemn and luminous. A few nobles sat in the pews, along with merchants, servants, and women, whose faces Isabel recognized from the charity gatherings, widows, mothers, girls who had once watched her from a distance and now saw her clearly. Fray Tomas conducted the ceremony. His voice was steady, but his eyes shone. "Marriage," he said, "is not the reward of perfect people. It is the meeting of two souls who choose again and again to see the best in each other and to correct the worst with tenderness." Today, Alejandro and Isabel do not erase what has been. They build on it, choosing to do differently where life has taught them hard lessons. Alejandro took Isabel's hand. "I, Alejandro," he said, "take you, Isabel, as my wife. I promise to honor your voice, to guard your dignity, to walk beside you in days of ease and days of difficulty. I will seek your counsel before making decisions that touch our lives and those in our care. I will never treat your presence as a tool for my ambition, but as a gift that humbles me." She repeated the vow, her voice clear. "I, Isabel, take you, Alejandro, as my husband. I promise to speak truth even when it is hard, to bring you comfort when you doubt, to remind you of mercy when justice grows sharp. I will not hide my thoughts from fear, and I will not shrink to keep your pride at peace. I offer you my whole self, and I ask for nothing less than your whole self in return." When Fray Tomas pronounced them husband and wife, there was a moment of stillness, like the held breath of the world. Then Alejandro lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it, not with triumph but with gratitude. As they walked down the aisle together, Lucia darted from the front pew and slipped her small hand into Isabel's free one. Without a word, Alejandro reached out and took Lucia's other hand. They walked that way, three in a line, under the eyes of rich and poor alike. Outside, the light was bright but gentle. Bells rang, not loud and brash, but with a steady, joyful rhythm. Beatriz threw a handful of flower petals, laughing. Some landed in Isabel's hair. Alejandro brushed one away with a tender touch. "Do you realize," he said softly, "that you walk differently now?" "How so?" she asked. "You do not measure each step by how it will be judged," he replied. "So you walk as if the ground belongs under your feet." "It does," she said. "For the first time it does." They moved among their guests, speaking not only to nobles, but to widows whose names they knew, to children who clung to their mothers' skirts. Alejandro made no distinction in his courtesy. Isabel spoke easily, unafraid of saying too much or too little. Later, when the guests had begun to drift away and the sun leaned lower in the sky, Alejandro and Isabel stood at the edge of the courtyard, watching Lucia chase a stray petal carried by the breeze. "Do you ever think of that ball?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she said, "but not with the same pain. It was the night I learned how much I could endure, and the night someone first stepped forward for me. If I had known then what path we would walk," he said, "I would have asked heaven to make it easier for you." "And I would not," she replied. "Without the darkness, I might never have seen clearly what light truly is." He smiled, then grew serious. "Isabel," he said, "if ever I forget what brought us here, your courage, your dignity, your refusal to be less than you are, remind me." Even if it wounds my pride. I will, she said. And if ever I doubt my worth again, you will remind me. Every day, he answered. With words, with actions, with the way I stand beside you when the world watches and when it looks away. She leaned closer. There, under a sky that had seen her humiliation and now witnessed her joy, he touched his forehead to hers in a quiet, reverent gesture. No words were needed. Around them, life in Madrid continued. Carriages rolled by, merchants bargained, children played in narrow streets, empires rose and crumbled in distant rooms. But in that courtyard, a different kind of power took root, the power of two people who had chosen freely to build a home on respect instead of fear. Years later, some would remember the scandal of the merchant who fell. Others would speak of the duke who challenged corruption. But those who knew the whole story would think first of a woman who once stood alone in a ballroom and later walked head high between a husband who honored her and a child who had learned from both of them that true greatness begins the moment we choose to honor another heart as carefully as our own. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story. He humiliated his pregnant wife in front of everyone, and the duke beside him destroyed his empire. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The chandeliers blazed above the great hall, casting their light over silk, lace and powdered hair, but Isabel Herrera felt the shine fall on her like a weight. The music, the murmur of voices, the faint scent of perfume and melted wax, all came together in a blur as she clung to her husband's arm and tried to keep her balance. "Smile," Don Martin murmured without looking at her. "You are entering the room of your life. Try not to look as if you are about to faint." "I am well," she answered softly. "It is only the heat, Martin, and the child." "The child," he repeated, as if the word displeased him. "Yes. Remember at least that you carry my heir, and walk as though you are proud of it." She did not remind him that pride was difficult when her stays cut into her ribs and her ankles ached. She adjusted her grip on his arm and raised her chin. Dozens of faces turned toward them. Some smiled with practiced warmth. Others watched with curiosity. They were the great names of Madrid, the ancient families whose lineages reached back centuries, now opening their gilded doors to a merchant from Seville who had turned trade into power. Don Martin Herrera, announced a servant at the top of the staircase, and his wife, Doña Isabel. The title still sounded strange in Isabel's ears. She had been simply Isabel de Rojas not long ago, daughter of a modest but respectable house. Now her name followed Martin's, measured by his success. A ripple ran through the hall. Gentlemen bowed. Ladies inclined their heads, fans fluttering like pale wings. Martin received their attention as though it were his due. His back straightened. His chest swelled a little. He accepted compliments with a light laugh. "So generous of your grace to honor us," he said to one nobleman. "Ah, my lord, your last letter was most flattering. I hope tonight will prove I deserved such praise." Isabel stood beside him, smiling when he nudged her with his elbow. "This is my wife," he would say. "She is unused to such grand company, but she learns quickly." She would curtsy, murmur a polite phrase, then retreat behind his presence, like a figure painted beside a central portrait. Some ladies asked after her condition, their gaze slipping down to her rounded belly. "When is the child expected, Doña Isabel?" one of them asked kindly. "In a few months, Señora," she replied. "The physician believes in late spring. May God bless the birth," the lady answered. "First children are always a little frightening." Isabel smiled, genuinely then. "Yes, but also a little comforting. They give us someone to protect." She felt Martin's hand tighten slightly over hers. When they moved on, he bent his head toward her, "Do not speak of fear," he murmured. "You make yourself sound timid in front of people who expect composure." "I thought I answered well," she said. "You thought," he echoed. "That is the problem. Leave the impression to me, Isabel. It is what I do best." At the far end of the hall, Alejandro de Navarra watched them. He stood with a small group of gentlemen, listening to a conversation about court news, but his eyes followed the merchant and his young wife as they crossed the polished floor. "That is Herrera," one of the men beside him said quietly. "He has risen like a comet. Ships everywhere. Tobacco, sugar, silver. They say he has more influence in certain matters than many of us born to these walls." Alejandro's gaze rested on Martin's face, taking in the measured smile, the almost hungry way he searched the room for the next important person. "And his wife?" Alejandro asked. "A girl from a lesser house," the man replied. "Pretty, I suppose. Not much to say about her. She looks as if she'd rather be hiding in a chapel." Alejandro said nothing. His attention moved from the husband to the wife. Isabel's posture was careful, almost too careful, as if every step required conscious effort. He saw the way she kept one hand close to her side, not quite touching her abdomen, as though she wanted to protect the child without drawing attention to it. "She walks as if the floor were water," another gentleman remarked. "Poor thing. These festivities must be exhausting in her state. Yet proof of Herrera's vigor," the first man chuckled. "He parades her like a banner." Alejandro's mouth tightened. He drained his glass and set it down. "I imagine the child is proof of God's will rather than anyone's vigor," he said calmly. The others laughed uneasily, not sure whether he intended a jest. Alejandro inclined his head, signaling an end to the topic, and turned his attention back to the room. The host of the evening approached Martin with outstretched arms. The man was an aging noble, his coat heavy with embroidery, his face lined but alert. "Don Martin," he said warmly, "you do my house honor tonight. Your presence brings half the city's energy under my roof. Your Excellency is too kind," Martin answered, bowing. "I only follow where men of vision such as yourself lead." "Look around," the host said, sweeping his hand across the hall. "You stand among dukes and marquises tonight, my friend. It is no small thing. You have earned it." Earned. The word pleased Martin. He glanced around, soaking in each glance turned his way. Isabel beside him felt his satisfaction like heat on her skin. "Your Excellency," she said softly, "thank you for receiving us with such kindness." The noble smiled at her. "Your presence, my dear, completes your husband's triumph. A man is never so fully presented to society as when he arrives with a wife and a child on the way." He said it kindly, but the words stung. Isabel felt more like a seal pressed into wax than a person. She dipped her head and smiled. "Shall we greet the Duke of Navarra?" the host went on. "He is here this evening as well." Alejandro approached as they turned. He walked with the relaxed ease of someone who had never needed to prove his place in a room. His dark hair was tied back neatly, his coat simple but impeccably cut. When he bowed, it was with a natural grace that made no show of itself. "Your Grace," Martin said with careful warmth. "An honor. I had not expected you." "Your host insisted," Alejandro replied. "He spoke of a night that would mark the city's memory, and I confess my curiosity has always been strong." Martin smiled a little too broadly. "You flatter me beyond measure." Alejandro's gaze shifted to Isabel. "Doña Isabel," he said gently, "I hope the evening is not too taxing." Her heart startled at being addressed by a duke so directly. She took a breath. "The evening is beautiful, Your Grace," she answered. "I confess only that the child grows heavy. Children are notorious for ignoring social schedules," he said. "They arrive and demand our attention without regard for our plans." There was a faint gleam of humor in his eyes, and for a heartbeat, Isabel relaxed. "Indeed," she said. "Mine seems to believe I must never sit." Martin chuckled, but there was a warning under the sound. "My wife is unused to grand gatherings," he said. "She sometimes forgets that weariness is a small price to pay for such an honor." Alejandro's expression did not change. "Weariness is always a price, Don Martin," he answered. "It is wise to know whom we pay it to." The words hung in the air a moment. Martin's smile stiffened. The host hurried to speak of other matters. Isabel lowered her eyes, wondering if she had somehow given the wrong answer. Yet when she dared a brief glance at the Duke, He was looking at her with a kind of distant concern, as if he saw more than she had said. The musicians began a new piece. Couples moved toward the center of the floor. "You must lead your wife in a dance, Herrera," one gentleman called. "Tonight is your celebration. Do not deprive us of the spectacle." Isabel felt her stomach tighten. "It might be a little difficult," she began. "Nonsense," Martine interrupted. "You can manage a short dance. You will not disgrace me with weakness in front of these men." Her cheeks warmed